For decades, there has been an argument in the comic book community that has often turned inexplicably vicious, especially in the years since the coming of the superhero movie genre. This argument has expanded to include places of work, school playgrounds, and even in the family home. The internet, however, is where the subject is most commonly fought over, often with disgusting lack of respect for one's fellow man, and even less for the spelling and grammar of the English language. What is this argument? DC or Marvel? Who is better? This debate has often left me scratching my head, mainly because, what do you mean by better? As both universes contain incredible characters and have had some truly amazing universe-building stories. I suppose DC does have Batman. However, the Marvel Silver Age of comics were really the first to bring a focus on character-driven stories over spectacle, and fully embrace the idea of a shared universe between all its heroes. But again, DC does have Batman. Even considering Batman as a factor, really when you think about it, you're comparing white bread to brown bread. It's really down to preference. That doesn't necessarily mean one's better than the other. And I'm saying this as a person who has no real preference to either. As well as classic and acclaimed stories, both companies have an equal number produced products which are utter garbage. For decades now, Marvel and DC have long referred to each other as the distinguished competition, which involves both companies regularly stealing ideas and trends from each other, even in some cases straight up ripping off each other's characters. The Avengers was Marvel's reaction to the Justice League of America, which featured all of DC's most powerful and popular characters. But the Avengers soon changed from featuring all of its big names to a revolving cast of lesser known and in many ways less powerful characters, resulting in far richer and more interesting storytelling. Whereas the Justice League added Batman. So right there, you'll see an example of a company taking what works and doing their own thing with it. I can't remember where I read it, but I always like the statement that DC stories are about gods who aspire to be normal men, whereas Marvel stories are about men aspiring to be like gods. Both concepts are equally as compelling when you take a moment to think about it. I would say that a lot of the DC Universe's characters are in many ways more powerful than Marvel's, Superman being the obvious example. But the flip side of that is that Marvel's characters are more relatable because of their limitations, which was one of the original selling points when the company launched, Spider-Man being the most famous for it. Again, neither gives either universe an edge over the other. Over the years, this rivalry has expanded from the printed page to different forms of media, in particular in animation during the 1990s. Both companies seeing some fairly faithful adaptations of their properties in animated form, most notably with X-Men and Batman the Animated Series, two shows that could not be farther apart in design and storytelling, but both extremely faithful to the source material, though Batman the Animated Series has aged far better, but that's something I'll talk about in a future episode. This video is about the cinematic rivalry that has recently started between the two companies. In the past, film adaptations were an occasional success, but more often utter failures.
Shaquille O'Neal.
It's hammer time.
What a magnetic personality.
I boogie around danger like a soul-trained dancer. Steel.
So yeah, that happened. That film actually does exist, and I have seen it twice. As hard as it is to believe, back in the early 90s, Marvel were in tremendous financial trouble, and in a bid to generate extra revenue, sold the rights to a lot of its characters to various different film companies, which included Fox, Sony, and Paramount. Films that became successful included the Blade movies,
Like me.
Fox's X-Men franchise,
Holy shit.
and Sony Pictures' Sam Raimi directed Spider-Man films.
Whoa! He stole that guy's pizza.
However, most of Marvel's characters went unused, and after a few years, the growing interest in the genre paved the way for Marvel in 2008 to self-finance Iron Man, which would go on to be one of the most successful independent films of all time.
Good luck keeping up.
What's going on here?
Let's face it, this is not the worst thing you've caught me doing.
And from that came the unimaginable success of the Marvel Cinematic brand. Sadly, Marvel still did not have the rights to its most popular titles. The X-Men,
Don't you know who I am? I'm the Juggernaut, bitch!
Oh boy.
Spider-Man,
I hate this song.
and the poor, unfortunate Fantastic Four. You know what the most tragic part of all of this is? That is the most screen-accurate Doctor Doom fans will ever see. For a long time, Warner Brothers, who owned the entirety of DC Comics, actually had many opportunities to make a Batman and Superman movie, but various reasons kept the production from getting off the ground. In 2009, Mad Max Fury Road director George Miller was well into pre-production on a full ensemble Justice League movie. It was titled Justice League Mortal, and was based on Mark Waid's The Tower of Babel and Greg Rucka's OMAC project. Unfortunately, the combination of growing expenses and the ill timing of the Writers Guild strike led the studio to pull the plug just as production was about to begin. The studio at the time not believing that there would be a profit in making a movie with such high production costs. As Marvel's Phase 1 began to take shape,
End this.
Warner Brothers attempted to start their own cinematic universe with Green Lantern. And well, for lack of better words, Green Lantern sucked. And is a shining example of a studio not respecting or in fact really understanding the subject material it's working from. 1997's Batman and Robin
Freeze, I'm Batman.
Right, everyone, chill.
had severely damaged their faith in the DC properties.
I want a car. Chicks dig the car.
This is why Superman works alone.
And it wasn't until the success of Batman Begins
Where are you?
and the even more popular follow-up, The Dark Knight, the studio started to realize the commercial and, of course, financial appeal of the DC universe in cinematic form. It is worth noting that in between those films, they also made Catwoman.
Not a great plan.
At the moment, the market is flooded with superhero movies, primarily from Marvel-based products, including the properties owned by Fox, who have quickly come to realize that the Marvel method of treating their characters with respect
I never say this, but don't swallow.
equals money.
Shit.
Unless it's the Fantastic Four, of course. The coming of the DC movies means that it's a lot more crowded.
Against a god.
You know, if all these films were coming out when I was 8 years old, then an aneurysm would have popped in my brain as a result of the sheer amount of excitement that I would be going through. Marvel Studios for the last decade have dominated the box office with an ever-expanding range of films based on their comic properties. The company has now reached a point where they are turning little-known C-list characters into massive financial success.
I'm Ant-Man. I know. It wasn't my idea.
DC, or more accurately Warner Brothers, is only now starting to increase its output of superhero movies. I'm excluding the Dark Knight trilogy, which really is a separate thing to the shared universe mega franchise that they are attempting to build, all of which is in response to the box office juggernaut that is the Avengers. With their Harry Potter films and Christopher Nolan-led Dark Knight trilogy coming to an end, the best thing for the studio was to forget Green Lantern and try again.
Need a savior.
but every day I hear people crying for one.
This time choosing to reimagine and relaunch Superman, which in 2006 they previously attempted with Bryan Singer's misguided Superman Returns. The studio wanted to play it safe with this next outing of The Last Son of Krypton, choosing to bring in Christopher Nolan as a producer and Batman Begins writer David Goyer. His work on 300 and Watchmen led the studio to pick Zack Snyder as director, and so Man of Steel became the first official film in the DC cinematic universe. As a long-time fan of Superman, I personally found Man of Steel to be extremely disappointing. A very good example of a studio, the producer, the writer and the director failing to grasp what the character and his motivations actually are. Of course, wearing this sweet-ass Superman t-shirt proves beyond doubt that I am a true fan. A common comment from comic fans is that Superman is their least favourite.
He's too powerful and he's too much of a Boy Scout. He's boring!
The filmmakers appear to have shared this view and decided to go with a more conflicted character with a darker story arc.
You're the answer, son. You're the answer to are we alone in the universe?
Can I just keep pretending I'm your son?
You are my son.
They also took what they know works, the previously mentioned Dark Knight trilogy, and used that formula to structure that movie.
Not a great plan.
Audiences are fairly split over this film. I've observed that longtime fans of the comics, the Bruce Timm Superman animated series, which I cannot recommend enough, and Christopher Reeve's Superman films, found the movie to be soulless and unnecessarily violent. Where those who found the character lame and boring, and who most likely never really had much exposure to the character before this film, thought that it was incredible. For the record, its casting and soundtrack are terrific. The new Superman theme is a real favourite of mine. Man of Steel, though not a failure, did not do nearly as well as what Marvel was seeing with its less well-known properties. I'm going to take you back in time to 2013, to a little place called Comic-Con. In one fully packed hall, actor Tom Hiddleston is dressed as his career-making role, Loki, and making the audience go crazy with his monologues from the films.
I am Loki of Asgard, and I am burdened with glorious purpose.
Is there any reason for it? Not really, but Marvel basically owns Comic-Con at this point, and knows how to please its fans.
Stand back, you mewling Quim.
He's such a legend. Meanwhile, in another hall, a couple of producers and Zack Snyder, together with a man whose voice drips with honey, awkwardly make this announcement.
Of course, we're writing the thing now, so it doesn't exist, but there is a thing that I found that kind of helped me understand what you can do. So I have a friend that's going to read a little thing, and some of you will recognize it, and it's not, we're not adapting this thing, but it is the thing that will help tell that story.
I want you to remember, Clark, in all the years to come, in all your most private moments, I want you to remember my hand at your throat. I want you to remember the one man who beat you.
Credit to the fans for their loyalty, but let's focus on the fact that they have no script yet. Warner Bros. Is making a knee-jerk decision in an attempt to improve on the lukewarm reception to Man of Steel by adding Batman to the sequel. Well, Batman does make everything better, and is a well-proven cash cow. Except for that one time.
Never leave the cave without it.
Mr. Wayne, Clark Kent, Daily Planet.
What's your position on the Bat Vigilante in Gotham?
The Warner Bros. Plan is to introduce audiences to an already fully populated world of superheroes and villains, with an established continuity of at least 10 years based on some of their more famous stories.
She with you?
I thought she was with you.
Why do that? Simple, they want in on that Avenger money. And this is the quickest way to get to Justice League. Remember my earlier point about both companies ripping each other off regularly, taking what works and improving on it while adding their own spin? DC's movie division are acknowledging and using the mistakes and criticisms of Man of Steel as actual story elements for Dawn of Justice. introducing a lot of characters so that they can then move into their own movies. A reverse of the Marvel method, who have admittedly always played it safe, especially when introducing the more fantastical elements of the comics. The bulk of their films have been formulaic, though Captain America the Winter Soldier and Guardians of the Galaxy have shown a more daring approach from Marvel in recent years. It's worth mentioning that Guardians made more money than Man of Steel.
What a bunch of a-holes.
Ant-Man, though fun and a great success, is pretty much a remake of Iron Man.
Yeah.
The 4 movies, though containing excellent characters and great ideas, have yet to really be as strong as some of the other Marvel offerings.
You are a vain, greedy, cruel boy. You are an old man and a fool!
This is because of the rinse and repeat storytelling method Marvel has refused to back away from. I have for a long time believed that the stunted creativity at Marvel is primarily down to its CEO, Ike Perlmutter, a notoriously frugal businessman who reportedly once complained at a film premiere that the attending journalist should be restricted to 1 free soft drink per person. It's also been reported that he has purposely underplayed the presence of female Marvel characters in marketing and merchandise. Disney, the owners of Marvel, have recently removed him from involvement in Marvel Studios, leaving studio head Kevin Feige in full control over all film development.
It's like they're lining up.
Well, they're excited.
I think with this change and very real competition of the DC movies, Marvel's quality of output is going to very much improve and take more risks with its storytelling. And this is my main point. Competition is healthy, it pushes boundaries and gets people to take chances. Marvel has pushed DC into stepping up their game, and now it's DC's turn.
At long last.
And so, like with the comics, their film counterparts have quickly developed their own very protective fan bases. As I said at the beginning, this argument has been going on between comic fans for years. Now it's being debated in cinemas. Going back to the question of which universe is better, to think that one has to be better than the other is just silly. Though there have not been that many DC movies, it has been widely regarded by its fans that the tones and themes featured in them mean that the DC films are a far darker and grittier universe, especially when compared to Marvel's films, which are often criticised for being too family-orientated and lacking any significant depth.
You are my bestest friend.
What is that thing?
He's so ugly. I love him.
Shit!
Language!
I suppose it all comes down to The Dark Knight, which proved more adult and darker themes could be explored in the superhero genre. That film does set a standard. It also does its own interpretation of Batman, which is nothing new, because there are many interpretations of Batman.
Oh, hey.
It is often declared by DC film fans that because their movies are darker and grittier, they are in some ways superior. Define grittier. Is something that is lit moodily, is very serious and features little to no humour, automatically more significant?
Are you the devil?
Isn't a good story a good story?
You can sniff a cow.
Man of Steel features a lot of dramatic speeches and introspective staring into the distance moments. But does that make it a more compelling story than, say, Star-Lord's, who saves the universe by winning a dance-off?
Bring it down hard. Someday, put it together.
What are you doing?
Dance off, bro. Me and you.
And also comes to terms with the death of his mother through a shared love of music.
Listen, baby.
Let's have some comparisons. Here we see a young actor dubbed by Christopher Reeve and wearing a prosthetic nose, talking with his father about his powers and what he should do with them.
Every time I get the football, I can make a touchdown.
That's for sure.
Every time.
Yeah.
I mean, is it showing off and somebody's doing the things he's capable of doing? Is
No.
a bird showing off when it flies?
No. No, now you listen to me. When you first came to us, we thought that people would come and take you away because when they found out, you know, the things you could do, and that worried us a lot. Because then a man gets older and he thinks very differently and things get very clear. And there's one thing I do know, son, and that is you are here for a reason. I don't know whose reason, whatever the reason is, you know. Maybe it's because, I don't know. It's, but I do know one thing. It's not to score touchdowns. Huh?
Yeah. Thanks, Dad. I'll race you to it. Yeah.
You will.
Come on. Come on, Pop. Brent, come on. Come on. Move, move. Yeah, go, go, go. Come on, Ray. Hey, Baron. Come on, Baron. Stay away.
Oh, no.
Jonathan!
All those things I can do. All those powers. And I couldn't even save him.
Now, admittedly, this scene is dated, but that sentence is still very powerful. Now let's see these elements retold in Man of Steel. Again, we have Pa Kent, this time played by Kevin Costner, talking with a young Clark, complete with his own nose, about the use of his power.
I just wanted to help.
I know you did, but we talked about this. Right? Right? We talked about this. You have... Oh, Clark, you have to keep this side of yourself a secret.
What was I supposed to do? Just let him die?
Maybe. There's more at stake here than just our lives, Clark, or the lives of those around us. When the world finds out what you can do, it's going to change everything. Our beliefs, our notions of what it means to be human, everything. You saw how Pete's mom reacted, right? She was scared, Clark.
Why?
People are afraid of what they don't understand.
Is she right? Did God do this to me?
Stay here.
I suppose in comparison, Man of Steel is the darker film, but that's mainly because of the colour grading and all of the characters being really serious. That doesn't make it deeper or more significant. Since his inception, Superman has always had religious elements associated with him. He's basically a culmination of Jesus Christ and Moses. I don't have a Moses figure, but I like to imagine that this is how he looked. Going back to competition being healthy, Marvel have pioneered and introduced the general public to the potential of the genre. It's easy for Warner Brothers to take what did and didn't work and improve upon it, much like their comic book counterparts regularly do. The standalone superhero origin story has been done to death. We are now in the time of the superhero crossover movie. both companies are exploring this in their own unique and distinctive ways. Marvel Studios has a long-running plan, but it's very possible their direction has altered in response to DC.
I'm just gonna hurt you. Really, really bad.
Civil War,
You chose the wrong side.
is very likely a reaction to Dawn of Justice.
Tell me. Do you bleed?
Both films are exploring a similar theme,
You will.
but with very different approaches.
You know I wouldn't do this if I had any other choice. But he's my friend. So was I.
It's an exciting time for this genre, however the superhero movie bubble is going to pop. People are going to get tired of them, and these films are not going to be the guaranteed hits that they once were, unless they bring something new and fresh to the table.
Bring the Phantom Drive online.
Less blue beams in the sky, please, and more original ideas, because if they don't, they will fail. There are going to be a few stumbling blocks.
That's it. No more Mr. Nice Duck.
But as a result, both companies are now being motivated to make the best possible films. But if Marvel's new direction takes more chances instead of just origin stories, then the universe will be deeper and darker. And not just because of the use of a filter or a twah in Hans Zimmer's latest score. This is a twah. But you know, there is nothing wrong with a superhero movie being fun.
We're gonna do a superhero landing. Wait for it. Woo! Superhero landing. Yeah, that's really hard on your knees.
So in conclusion, neither side are better. Sometimes one will do it better than the other. Marvel for the last few years happens to have been stronger and better organised when it comes to its theatrical releases. But not always when it comes to comics, or in the genre's increasing presence on television, especially when considering its animated offerings, something I will be looking at in future installments. When it comes down to it, both companies are working from rich source material, populated by dynamic and exciting characters, Batman being the most prominent. But even the lesser knowns, for many of us, have played important roles in our childhoods, even more so in our later years as fully grown man-children. It's not a toy, it's a collector's item.
I can't wait to show you my toys.
But as long as talented people are left in charge and fresh ideas and risks are still taken, then the future is going to be pretty exciting for all involved. Hopefully leading to less moments like this and more moments like this. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, please feel free to subscribe. In future, I hope to cover other elements of this long-standing feud between Marvel and DC. So until next time,